Welcome back to the Intuitive Creators Podcast, where we explore the journey of creating, living, and leading from soul alignment. I'm your host, Mandee, and today we're diving into a truth that every single one of us faces when we step into our evolution. Your growth, your expansion, your rising into your true self will trigger people. And the most important part, it's not only okay, it's actually part of the process. Why evolution triggers people. I think this is the best place to start within this episode, and thank you for tuning in. And if you're somebody that's returning, I extra thank you for you returning back to me. When I say evolution, I'm talking about personal growth, healing, stepping into authenticity, or creating from soul. Evolution is when you begin to peel back layers of conditioning and step more fully into who you really are. It's not always glamorous. It often means making decisions that others don't understand, setting boundaries that feel uncomfortable for them, and saying yes to paths that don't follow the script society handed you. So, why does your evolution sometimes trigger others? One big reason is the mirror effect. When you grow, it naturally reflects back to others the places where they may feel stagnant or stuck. They might not consciously realize it, but your courage can highlight their fear. Your freedom can expose their self-imposed limitations. And instead of celebrating you, they may feel confronted by their own lack of movement. Another reason is the fear of loss. Friends, family, and even coworkers may feel like they're losing the old version of you that they were comfortable with. The you who maybe went along with everything, who didn't question, who played small to keep the peace. As you evolve, some people mourn that version of you, even if that version was never fully you. Then there's comfort zone disruption. People like predictability. When you grow, you break out of the box they've placed you in, and that can feel destabilizing for them. It challenges the dynamics of the relationship. For example, if you've always been the quiet one and suddenly you're speaking your truth, they might not know how to respond. I'll share a personal story here with you, as I often do on this podcast. When I became a yoga teacher and started stepping into my psychic and creative work, not everyone around me celebrated. Actually, in fact, a lot of people did not celebrate me and discouraged me, which was sad for them, really. Some people rolled their eyes, some questioned my choices, and others subtly pulled back. At first, it hurt, but I realized their reactions weren't really about me. My choices were simply showing them what was possible, and that possibility either inspired them or it scared them. I know for me personally, and I can only speak to my own experiences, is that I trigger a lot of people, and trigger is not a bad thing. I don't view it as a bad thing anymore. I know the older version of me feared that because I internalized all of those things. So when people pulled away or rolled their eyes at me, I thought there was something wrong with me, when it's actually the exact opposite. I'm really showing them something that is possible. I'm really showing them what courage and vulnerability are. They're powerful. So when somebody doesn't take it well or doesn't celebrate me, that has zero to do with me and everything to do with them not evolving into who they actually are. So within this personal share, I'll leave you with this. I don't believe that people are inherently bad or inherently good. I think good and bad is based upon our decisions and our choices in life. So if there's a pattern of bad choices, you're choosing to be a bad person, whether you're consciously aware or not. Now, if it's the opposite, even when you're making choices, maybe based upon yourself and upon the impact of others, sometimes that can be a heavy burden to have on your shoulders. So here's the truth. Your light doesn't create their shadow. It only reveals the shadow they already carry. That distinction is so important. You are not responsible for dimming yourself so someone else feels comfortable. Their discomfort is their invitation to heal. And here's where clarity comes in. Sometimes people won't even consciously know why they're reacting. They may say things like, "You've changed," or "I don't even recognize you anymore." When in reality, what they mean is, "I don't know how to stay the same around you." Growth can feel like rejection to those who fear it. I know that can be really hard to hear, so I say these things with love. If you are feeling triggered at this point in time, I want you to close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, pause this episode if you need to. Hold space for yourself. I say all this to say that this actually doesn't mean you're wrong for growing. In fact, it means you're doing exactly what you're meant to do, because evolution isn't just for you, it's for the collective. Every time one of us rises, it creates ripples that encourage others to rise too. So I'm about to go through 4 phases of triggers, and these are natural phases. You may or may not experience all of these intensely or at all. This is just to give you information to break down what triggers are. Sometimes when we are given information, it can give us a broader view of the experiences that we have. So take it how it resonates. Phase 1 is resistance. People make passive-aggressive comments, question your choices. This is the initial discomfort people feel when you start changing. It might sound like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Or, "That doesn't really sound like you." Resistance often comes from fear, because your growth highlights where they're not growing, or because they're afraid of losing the version of you they're comfortable with. This can be a sad reality for many of us. And again, it has nothing to do with you. You are on your own path and you are right where you're supposed to be. Now, if you weren't triggering people, then I'd be like, maybe you need to evaluate your circle. Maybe you need to evaluate who you surround yourself with. And that's not to say that, I'm aware that I trigger people personally, but I trigger people very close to me too. People that I love and, very much deeply appreciate. But I know when it's appropriate because of our relationship, right? I think that's kind of the difference there. Phase 2 is projection. Oh, I love this subject. I'm really joking. Projection is really not a fun subject. People criticize, gossip, or mock your changes. This is when discomfort turns outward, and people actively criticize, gossip, or mock those changes within you. Projection means they are placing their insecurities onto you, what they wish they could do. They tear down in others. For example, "She thinks she's better than us now," or "He's so full of himself since he started that business." These are just some of the examples that I wanted to add into here because I think that it's helpful to hear the language, and it might actually give you some moments to think about past experiences or past conversations or moments where maybe these things were happening to you and you just didn't know it. But projection is something that a person will do because they refuse repeatedly, and I say repeatedly because it's a pattern of choices, right? Like I was talking about earlier, where people are not trying to face their inner world, their inner demons, if you will. In order to rise, you have to go through the darkness, right? There's no way around it. You have to go through those things in order to find the light, in order to find the peace and the solitude, and to have the wisdom to know the differences between those things. Now, phase 3 is silence and withdrawal. So people will distance themselves because they can't align. Some people won't fight you. They'll simply fade away. They may not know how to relate to the new version of you, so they step back. This can feel painful because it's often people you've loved deeply. I say this often to the people closest to me. It never gets easier, ever, to create boundaries and to separate myself from people that just aren't good for me anymore. There's a season, a reason for every person that comes into your life. And you may agree with that, you may disagree with that, neither here nor there. It's more or less the understanding that if it's time to leave, it's time. Now, letting go of somebody, letting go of a thing, a place, whatever it is, does not mean that you are a bad person. It actually means that you are evolving. That's it. You're evolving, you're changing, you're growing, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things. Now, can you hold space for the really wonderful memories? Absolutely. I actually encourage that. But I digress. It does not make you a bad person. All right. So their silence, their withdrawal, just take that as, this is the best case scenario in this situation, right? Now, phase 4, acceptance. Sometimes. So some eventually come around, inspired by your courage. Over time, some people will soften. They'll see that your growth wasn't a phase, but a true transformation. This might look like them supporting you in quiet ways, asking for advice, or even beginning their own journey. But it doesn't happen for everyone, and that's okay. Now, for me, I will share my own experiences because that's what I can do here in this moment. I haven't had almost anybody come back around, apologizing for their behavior, or, showing that, like, oh, I actually realize now that this was actually you growing and transforming into somebody that you really need to be. And then they start their own journey. I have had people in my life who have reached out to me personally and privately, who have started their own journeys and have asked me for advice, asked me for tips, or just asked me random questions. To them, it's random. To me, it's not. Right? And I love when that happens. I do. I love supporting people on their journey because that means that I'm not alone in all of this, that other people are going through similar things. And that's actually super reassuring for me. So, not everyone will move through these phases, and that's not your responsibility, right? These are just, identifiable things for you to look out for. And again, information can be very powerful, and helping you become more aware of current stuff happening, maybe past, or things that will happen. So let's look at the spiritual perspective of this. Evolution is an energy shift. When your vibration rises, some people can't resonate anymore. It's like tuning into a different radio station. If someone is still tuned into an old frequency, they literally can't hear your song. Think of it like being on a train. Some souls are only with you for a few stops, while others are destined to ride the whole way. This is where soul contracts come into play. Before we even incarnated, many of us made agreements with other souls to meet, to teach, to challenge, and sometimes to leave once the lesson was complete. Now, I want to encourage everyone that listens, you do not have to believe in any of these things. I am a firm believer in leaving room and space for everyone to find their own belief system, and whatever that looks like is what it looks like. I accept all beliefs for every single person because I don't believe in being forceful. I just don't. So there's that. When someone falls away from your life, it doesn't mean you failed or they failed. It means the contract may have been fulfilled. Growth is often about letting go so new aligned relationships can form. The universe is constantly rearranging our connections to support our highest path. And this is where ascended masters and higher guides come in. They remind us that we are never truly alone, even when it feels like people are leaving. Ascended masters such as Jesus, Buddha, Kuan Yin, Saint Germain, or Isis represent souls who mastered earthly lessons and now serve as teachers across lifetimes. Their wisdom is available to anyone willing to listen inwardly. Now, I can speak upon my own experiences here. I do believe that Jesus, Buddha, Saint Germain, and Isis are all with me in many instances. And if you're familiar with Ascended Masters, amazing. If you're not, I encourage you to look it up, to explore the topic and to see if it, resonates for you. But I can tell you this much. I've learned a lot of amazing lessons from these particular people. And not just from their stories, but from their presence in my own life. If you don't know, I have Isis tattooed on me. I have plans for 2 leg pieces where it's the gods and goddesses of ancient Egyptian culture and times. I have a connection there in past lives, so I want to honor all of them. And Isis is someone that I deeply admire. When you feel abandoned by people, call in these higher beings. Ask them to help you see the situation through the lens of divine order rather than personal loss. Universal law teaches us that energy always seeks resonance. Those who are meant to rise with you will. Those who can't won't, and that's okay. Your vibration acts like a magnet. As you evolve, you'll naturally attract new relationships, teachers, and opportunities that match your frequency. The more you trust the process, the easier it becomes to release attachments and walk forward with peace instead of fear. How to handle being the trigger. I'm going to give you some practical advice here, which is something that I really appreciate about these episodes, is that we can talk about these subjects but we also need to talk about tangible and practical ways and practices that can help us integrate these concepts. Don't shrink to make others comfortable. I know this is going to sound a whole lot easier to say, but to do it is a whole nother challenge in itself. But dimming your own light doesn't help you, and it certainly doesn't help others, right? So speaking on your own behalf, speaking your mind, expressing yourself, really, really important. But like to really understand what your intention is always in certain moments, discernment versus defense. You don't need to defend your evolution, but you can discern who you share it with. So discernment is another episode that I have already added onto the queue here. It's called The Power of Discernment. I highly recommend listening to that. Discernment is a very helpful tool when you interact with other human beings and with yourself too. Compassion. Remember, their reaction is about their inner struggle, not your worth. Really important that we don't internalize things and experiences, because that in the long run hurts us. We internalize things so deeply that then we believe those things when they were never meant to be believed in the first place. Boundaries. This is a pretty big one. I do plan on doing quite a few episodes on this topic in general, so stay tuned. Protect your energy. Not everyone deserves access to the new you. I know it's going to sound harsh, but it's not. It's actually not. You are the most important thing in your life. You're the most important person in your life. If you don't demonstrate boundaries, you're the one that hurts, not anybody else, right? So understanding how you want to be treated and then expressing that. And if somebody doesn't understand those things and really doesn't want to bother with respecting those things, let them go. Just let them go. And then finally, I want you to celebrate yourself. Instead of focusing on who leaves, focus on who stays and supports you. So I want to share something really funny. If you know me in real life, you're probably going to laugh hysterically because I have posted this on social media before. Facebook. So the last few years, I've been having this interesting pattern happen to me where people will unfriend me on Facebook like after I post something. It's usually after I post something, which to me is like, wow, this content triggered you? That's really sad. And I don't know who unfriends me. Maybe I find out later on, but for the most part, I never really know. And for the most part, I don't care, right? This is who I am. And if that triggered you to unfriend me, like, we never were in alignment to begin with. So whatever. I don't control people's behaviors or actions. But every time somebody deletes me or unfriends me, within 24 hours, I kid you not here, folks, I make 2 or 3 more friends. And they're more aligned to me. We resonate with each other. We have very similar interests and things that we are into. And I always laugh. And this is how I can transmute that potential internalization, right? I could question like, oh, wow, this person didn't want to be my friend. Like, no. This person took themselves out of the picture for me silently. And I didn't have to defend myself, none of that. So that's the best case scenario to me. And it made room for new aligned connections. And man, am I thankful whenever that happens. So, practical tips here. I'm going to give you 3. Journal about what triggers you notice in others. Use affirmations like, my growth is not up for debate. My soul knows the way. And practice energy clearing after interactions with draining people. I personally really love doing breath work. I also really love speaking out loud to my guides and just letting them know, like, hey, that wasn't my energy. Please let go of it, get it out of me. I want nothing to do with that. Or I'll just, burn some sage, the old school way, smudge myself, and maybe I say those things out loud, whatever it is. But I make it a priority to recognize when somebody's draining me or trying to control me, and I let somebody or, my higher self know, like, no, I don't accept that. I don't accept it at all. Flipping the lens. So when you are triggered, so let's trade the dynamic here. So you're the one being triggered in this scenario, flipping the lens. Sometimes we're the ones triggered by someone else's evolution. I've been here quite a few times. The reflection that we need to do. What about their growth feels uncomfortable? Now, I personally love meeting strong, independent women, and there have been times I've met particular ones who've triggered me. And because I have done all this work and this growth on myself, I've been able to recognize, oh, I'm triggered right now. Interesting. So what about their growth? What about them can I learn from? What can I learn from them? I reframe it into something more positive and more growth-minded so that I can understand that this person has something to teach me and that I'm always a student first. So the reminder here is that triggers are invitations to heal, not punishments. If we look at it that way, we're looking at it in a lens of fear, and that doesn't help our growth, it hinders it. So practice curiosity. What is this showing me about my own desires or wounds? What is this showing me? What am I supposed to be looking at right now? And sit with it. Journal it, talk it out, whatever that looks like for you, and see what comes up for you. And it may not be super pleasant. It's not always meant to be. So some practical tips here for this one. Pause and breathe, right? Breath work is so important. When you notice the trigger, take 3 slow, deep breaths before reacting. This creates space between the feeling and the response, which is a good thing. You stay away from reacting and you come into a space of responding. Compassion. This is a great practice. Send them silent well wishes. May they be happy. May they be fulfilled. May they continue to grow. Notice how your heart feels after that. And then a small aligned action. After reflection, choose one micro step toward your own growth, right? Signing up for a class, maybe it's reaching out to a mentor. This turns comparison into fuel. I love that. An affirmation that I really enjoy repeating, and I usually do this in the mirror: their success does not diminish mine. There is space for all of us to evolve. Now, the community connection can be a really great aspect. Share your trigger in a safe space. Maybe that's your journal, a trusted friend, or a support group, instead of suppressing it. Speaking it out loud often dissolves the shame around it. That one's really, really important. So I want to end here with some encouragement for you, the listener. And I'm so thankful for you listening. I want to add a reframe here. Being triggered is evidence that you're actually evolving. I've already said it throughout this episode, but I really want to emphasize that. Being a trigger is evidence that you're actually evolving. If everyone approves, you're probably not growing, right? Think about it. Soul-led growth is not for people pleasing. It's for alignment, purpose, and truth. So I want you to close this out with me with a mantra. If you're not familiar with mantras, I highly recommend looking into them. They can be really great tools as anchors for grounding and any sort of growth work that you're working on. I give myself permission to evolve unapologetically. I give myself permission to evolve unapologetically. I want you to say this one more time and really mean it. I give myself permission to evolve unapologetically. And so it is. Thank you for tuning into today's episode of the podcast. Remember this, your evolution is sacred, and not everyone will understand it. Some will resist, some will project, some will walk away. But the right people, the aligned people, will celebrate you. So the next time you notice someone being triggered by your growth, instead of shrinking back, take a deep breath and say, I'm becoming who I always was meant to be, and that's okay. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear this reminder. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss our next conversation on creating and living in alignment with your soul. I'm Mandee, and this has been the Intuitive Creators Podcast. Until next time, keep rising, keep creating, and keep evolving, my friends.